Hello everyone, this is Joseph, and this is the first video of my Pauper Commander deck tech series where I'm going through the Ravnica guilds. So starting off in alphabetical order, we're going to have Azorius, which gives us blue and white. And when looking at the uncommon creatures to serve as commanders for this deck, the standout option to me was Soulherder. Soulherder is a 1/1 spirit for a 1 white and blue mana. And it has the effect that whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Soulherder. And at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control. So right away we have a lot of things going on. The first effect encourages us to exile other creatures, and it actually doesn't care whether it's ours or our opponent's. It just rewards us with a +1 counter. And so that gives us both an exile theme and a +1 counter theme. And then at the end of each of our end steps, we blink one of our creatures, giving us an enter the battlefield theme. So that means that this card gives us a setup and an immediate payoff on our commander. I really like how this commander feels. It feels legendary. And also, shout out to the artist Seb McKinnon, who honestly gave this card some of the most gorgeous art I've seen. But let's get into the deck. So start off with priority 1, ramp. And we're in white and blue, which are never the best colors for ramp, so we're going to have a standard ramp artifact package. We're going to start off with Arcane Signet. So for 2 mana, we get this artifact that we can tap to add 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. And then we also have Mind Stone, another 2 mana artifact that we can tap for colorless mana, or we can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice it to draw a card. Now, this effect may seem underwhelming, but honestly, having that late game potential to crack it and draw that last extra card can really turn the tide, particularly in Pauper games. But even in ramp, we're already going to be taking advantage of our enter the battlefield effects with cards like Farfinder and Pilgrim's Eye. Both of these are colorless creatures that cost 3 mana. Farfinder is a 1/1 fox with vigilance, which when it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Pilgrim's Eye is very similar. It's a 1/1 creature, but instead of having vigilance, it has flying. And whenever it enters the battlefield, again, you can search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. So these cards aren't going to be ramp per se, but they are certainly going to make sure that we hit our land drops. The second priority when deck building is card draw. And here we're really going to be abusing our enter the battlefield triggers. Some of them are going to be creatures with straight draw effects like Cloud Conceer, which is a 2/1 elemental wizard for 2 and a blue that has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. But we can also get into more effective card draw enter the battlefield triggers with Pondering Mage, a 3/4 human wizard for 3 blue that has the effect of whenever Pondering Mage enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle your library and draw a card. But what if we don't want to be constantly blinking our creatures just for card draw? For that, we can turn to Canal Courier, which is a 3/5 human rogue for 5 and a blue. And when this enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. So from that point onwards, at the end of our end step, we can then draw a card, and we don't need to be using our blink effect on Canal Courier. We can turn it on something else. And whenever someone else becomes the monarch, we can just blink Canal Courier, and then we can reset ourselves as the monarch, so we're getting that card draw. It also has the effect of whenever Canal Courier and another creature attack different players, Canal Courier can't be blocked this combat. And the last card I want to bring up here is Whirlpool Rider, a 1/1 merfolk for 1 and a blue that has the effect of whenever it comes into play, we can shuffle the cards from our hand into our library, then draw that many cards. So if we have a full hand, but nothing is an answer to the situation in front of us, we can play this or blink it, and we can just reset everything in our hand. Next, for this commander, I'm choosing to go into a +1 counter theme. So we're going to look at creatures that with ATB effects give us +1 counters, like Basri's Acolyte. a 2/3 cat cleric for 2 white that has lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures you control. So use this creature to blink, and you will have your commander and any other creature that you want on the field getting big very fast. We also have some instant options for +1 counters. One of my favorites is Test of Faith, an instant for 1 and a white that prevents the next 3 damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn, and then put a +1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. So this not only makes our creatures bigger, it also protects us, and it can really make the difference in whether or not something gets destroyed. Another option is Teferi's Time Twist. So this is an instant for 1 and a blue, where we blink and any permanent that we control, and if it enters the battlefield as a creature, it enters with an additional +1 counter on it. So this can be a key piece of protection for any of our major permanents that we want to stick around. And we can also put a +1/+1 counter on that. And remember, anytime that we exile one of our creatures, that also counts as a pump effect, basically, for our commander, putting a +1 counter on it. But what are the payoffs for those +1 counters? So first we're going to have Enoch Bondkin, a 2/1 dog soldier for 1 and a white. It has Outlast for 1 and a white, so we can pay 2 mana and tap it to put a +1 counter on it. But more importantly, each creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it has first strike. So that's going to always be our commander, and it also will be most of the other creatures in this deck. Another creature is Vygian Graftmage, a Vedalken Wizard Mutant that's 0/0 for 2 and a blue. And it has Graft 2, so when it enters the battlefield, we put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we can move a +1/+1 counter from this onto any other creature. So we can use this, and whenever we blink another creature, we can move a grafted +1 counter from Vygian Graftmage onto that newly entering creature, and whenever Vygian Graftmage gets low, we can just blink that and reset the +1 counters on it. It also has the ability that pay 1 and a blue, and we can untap any target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. So this gives all of our major creatures a pseudo-vigilance effect. Then also we have Phantom Nomad, which is a 0/0 spirit nomad for 1 and a white that enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And if damage would be dealt to Phantom Nomad, prevent that damage and instead remove 1 +1/+1 counter from Phantom Nomad. So if we just have Phantom Nomad and our commander on the field, this is basically an indestructible blocker for any one creature that our opponent would be trying to swing in with. We can always be blinking it and resetting the +1 counters on it, and it will basically never die. Also, we have Shinewind, which is a 0/0 elemental from 1 and a white with flying, and whenever it comes into play, it has a +1/+1 counter put on it. We can then also pay 1 and a white and remove a +1/+1 counter from Shinewind to destroy a target enchantment. So if we combine this with the card like Basri's Acolyte that is putting +1 counters on Shinewind, that means that we can consistently have enchantment removal for the deck. Next, we're going to look at our Blink strategy payoffs. So these are cards that care about ETB and LTB, or leave the battlefield, triggers. So first off, we're going to have Lunarch Veteran, a 1/1 human cleric for white, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we gain 1 life. So that's going to add up to a lot of life gain very fast. But it also has Disturb, so if this gets killed, we can pay 1 and a white and exile it, and get the disturbed creature Luminous Phantom, a 1/1 spirit cleric with flying, and whenever another creature we control leaves the battlefield, we gain 1 life. And if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So between the Lunarch Veteran and the Luminous Phantom, it doesn't matter which one we have out on the field, we're going to be gaining the same amount of life either way. We're going to be getting the life gain coming and going. Another payoff creature is Ninth Bridge Patrol. This is a 1/1 dwarf soldier for 1 and a white, and whenever another creature we control leaves the battlefield, we put a +1/+1 counter on Ninth Bridge Patrol. So this is going to just be putting +1/+1 counters on itself as we play the game, and it's going to get very big very fast, and it's going to be a great target for our +1 counter synergies like the Fijian Graft Mage. And another key combo piece is Salt Skitter. So this is a 3/4 worm for 3 and a white, and whenever another creature comes into play, remove Salt Skitter from the game. Return Salt Skitter to play under its owner's control at the end of turn. So this is basically going to just double up all of our ETB or LTB triggers. It's going to make everything that we have grow twice as fast. But we can't just be caring about what we're doing, we also have to be caring about what our opponents are doing. So we have to look at some removal effects. And remember, for creatures, we care about exiling them, not just killing them, for 2 reasons. First, every creature we exile is going to make our commander bigger. And second, exile makes sure that our opponents cannot benefit from them being in the graveyard or recur them easily. So for this, we're going to have 2 key examples I'm going to show you. Exile, which is an instant for 2 and a white. That is very simple. It says exile target non-white attacking creature. You gain life equal to its toughness. So it does have the stipulation that the creature must be attacking, but we gain life equal to its toughness. And at this point, if our opponent is swinging into us, we want to take out their biggest creature. It also means that we are probably going to gain a lot of life off of that creature's toughness. Another option is Wanderer's Strike. So this is a sorcery for 4 and a white that says exile target creature, then proliferate. So not only is this going to exile a creature, it's also going to buff anything else we've been putting counters on. And that means, for example, we're going to immediately get 2 counters on our commander, as well as whatever else we've been putting counters on this entire time. But now for protection. So this deck depends upon its commander being in play for those regular ETB effects. Particularly when it first comes out, it's going to be a 1/1 or a 2/2, which makes it vulnerable to basically any combat interaction or any burn spell. So we have to put a lot of effort into protecting our commander. So for this, we have Blink Protection, which functions for both our commander and our other creatures. For example, Ephemerate, exile target creature you control and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with Rebound. So if you cast this spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves at the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost. So in addition to functioning as a piece of protection for our commander or our other key creatures, it also is a way to allow us to double up on an ETB effect, and it's also going to double up all of our ETB, LTB triggers. In addition to that, we also want to look at more permanent forms of protection. For this, we can look at several cheap blue enchantments, for example, Robe of Mirrors, and an aura enchantment for 1 blue that has enchanted creature has Shroud. Very simple, very effective, because remember, we don't need to be targeting our commander for anything. It just needs to stay on the battlefield, it will affect other creatures, and it will slowly grow off of its own effect. So, how do we win with this deck? We're going to be putting counters on our creatures, and then we're going to be swinging in for big damage. One of our cards, Slith Ascendant, can basically do that by itself. Slith Ascendant is a 1/1 Slith for 1 white that has flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So if our opponent does not have any flyers, and this can continue getting in for damage, it's just going to be slowly growing every turn, and it's going to very quickly put a clock on our opponents that they have to address. We can also try and get some of our other creatures in with some sorceries like Stealth Mission, a sorcery for 2 and a blue that says put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. That creature can't be blocked this turn. We could also look at more consistent effects like Helium Squirter. So that is a 0/0 Beast Mutant for 4 and a blue with Graft 3 and pay 1 mana. Target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it gains flying until end of turn. So if Helium Squirter is on the field, it doesn't matter how many blockers my opponent has. If I have creatures with +1 counters on them and some mana, I can just give all of my creatures flying, and this is a perfect setup for an Alpha Strike scenario. But the real all-star of this deck is going to be Protective Bubble. So this is an art enchantment for 3 and a blue, where we have enchanted creature is unblockable and has Shroud. We want this on our commander immediately. Remember, our commander is going to get very large passively. It's putting counters on itself, so all we need is to have it last long enough to get huge and then to get it through. And this one card gives us both of those effects. So this is our Soulherder deck, and it's a very strong commander for PDH. It's going to run us about $17, sideboard included. Full deck list is in the description. Please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think of this channel or any suggestions you have for PDH commanders you'd like to see.